get so mad, there's no controlling me. My thoughts get so bad, I'm like, oh God, here goes. I lost all feeling from my head to my toes. You said some shit that I can't let go, so just stay tuned for the rest of the show.
When you think about you know, when you first came over from Barbados, what shocked you the most? Or what was your first, you know, when did you let me rephrase that, because I know what I'm thinking in my head. So
I realized that I was black.
Yeah, because I know when I realized that I wasn't white. I can
Okay.
pinpoint the moment.
So I think there were two experiences that really stood out for me. The first one, I think I couldn't really believe it. And it was, I think, a visit to Sainsbury's and having the security follow me around, but thinking, is he or isn't he? It could just be a coincidence. There are loads of people in here. He could be doing his checks.
Yeah,
Could just be noticing him at the same point that he's doing his checks, right? So I'm not really sure, but I think the dude is following me. And I think the second one was a little bit more out there, and it was for our wedding anniversary. My husband took me to Tiffany's to buy a piece of jewelry, and the lady who was dealing with us, no, the guy who was dealing with us, he was like, oh, congratulations. We told him about the story of why we were there and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, oh, fantastic. Well, if you go sit over in the corner, we'll have a bottle of champagne brought over and you can sit and you can enjoy while I get your items together. So we went over, we sat down, and so I was facing like this way, and my husband was facing the other way, so he can see what was happening in the shop over my shoulder. And we were waiting for like 5 minutes. I'm like, what's going on, Tiffany's? I'm expecting a better level of service here. And I could see my husband say, oh, I think I just saw someone come, look at us, and then go back. And then she went again, she came again, stopped before she reached us, and then went back. And then on the third time, the gentleman who served us, he came over and went like, yes, this is Mr. and Mrs. Gibbs. Yes, the champagne is for them. So it's like she couldn't believe that we were in that space. That, yeah. And I think that's when it actually clicked on me. Yes, all of the incidences that you were in your head saying, oh, overreacting, oh, maybe it's not, maybe it's, okay, yes, this has happened too many times. And so as a result of that, you kind of learn to adjust. If I go to certain shops, I would make sure that I'm dressed a certain way. Once again, cloaking. I would make sure that my pockets were on the outside of the jacket and not on the inside. I always make sure I take a receipt, even though we're all about the environment and going paperless. Evidence is key.
I hear you.
So all of these little things you learn to adjust to. I think we were having a conversation before, and you said it's like having a rock in your shoe. After a while, you don't even notice it's there. Your foot has adjusted to that level of discomfort, whereas it's no longer a discomfort.
And you know, the thing that I find hard is that in that situation, if you had in Sainsbury's just said, are you following me? You would have come across as the stereotype angry black woman. And it's that bit that I just think that's what makes people just stay quiet and just say, okay, so this happened today. I mean, I had a situation not like that, but I was checking into a hotel, and and this is recently, this is in the last year, checking in, and the lady in front of me was taking ages. She had a lot of baggage and there was stuff going on, so it was quite a while. And so she was at the desk. She literally just got to the desk before me. You know, when you get annoyed, you think, oh, if I'd been a little bit quicker, I would have been done and gone. And she was probably similar age to me, but was white. And anyway, she got her room key and off she went. The guy apologized to me for my wait, asked my name, pulled up the reservation, and then asked me for my ID. Now, he hadn't asked the woman before
for
her ID, because I was standing there the entire, we got to the desk almost the same time, so I was there the whole time. And I just paused, took out my ID, and then I thought, no, I'm going to say something. And I just said, I think you forgot to ask the lady before for her ID. And he just started to go red. And because it was a nice hotel, right? So I just thought, I got you. Like, what more
I
could you
see
do?
you.
And I just, you know, I couldn't. It just didn't sit with me to not say something, and I hope it will make him think in the future. But he clearly didn't feel a need to take ID from the woman in front of me, who demographic wise was exactly the same as me, except she was white. Everything else was the same. We were actually checking in for the same night as well. So, you know, there was hardly anything different in the booking that I could say that, oh, maybe, or whatever. But no, it's challenging. And these are everyday occurrences. And people might think, oh, well, it doesn't matter, but it does, because it builds up and it builds up and it builds up. And if you then are going into a workplace where you feel that you're not accepted fully, or that you can't bring your authentic self to work, it grates and it wears away. And then you do see people who are, and you see it in school children. You look at the stats around Black children achieving, and yes, black girls achieve better than Black boys, and but the label is there right from the beginning that you're not going to be successful, that you're not going to amount to anything. They're put in lower sets, they're graded down, you know, and it's and that's really well documented. So when it comes to the workplace, and you finally, it's like this constant battle. You're constantly pushing water uphill. It's really hard to articulate that and actually share that with people.
Yeah, it is. And I think, you know,
but if you don't share it, it's not there for not knowing, because
better.
actually I have to say, I've got tremendous colleagues. I work, you know, and there are brilliant people in our industry. There is more good than not. And we're lucky. And there are people who want to engage and want to know how. They'll want to know how you feel. They want to know what you're going through on a daily basis, to understand it more. Yeah,
I think it so depends on the person. You know, not everyone is willing to rehash that trauma or be vulnerable constantly in front of everyone. Because I think when you are discussing things like racism, what helps is the validation, and validation equals example. So you're the one who is constantly giving an example of this situation of a microaggression, this situation of, you know, being watched, this situation of being ignored. And you're bringing all of those things back to life. So it's really important that you have a group around you that provides the energy to deliver on those things, but also gives you the safe space to break down and let it out, and to voice the unfairness of the situation. Like, we have to be willing to say, you see, that situation, that was not okay. That was not okay.
Yeah. And get a bit braver. It's I think it's getting better. I feel really positive that it's getting better, but I think it takes in every workplace for there to be some strong allyship, for there to be some safe space to and for people to start the conversation And really, in terms of allyship, and I speak for myself here, it's way more powerful when that allyship doesn't come from you, but it comes from somebody who's not a person of color, who says, I saw this happen and I don't think it's right. You know, how do you feel about it? That's all it takes.
Yeah, that is indeed. Or this situation happened. I didn't know how to deal with it. How do you think I should have dealt with it?
Yeah.
How can I learn from this? I think
Yeah.
people have got to be in that space so where they're willing to be engaged with, where they're willing to hear a different perspective, where they're willing to be challenged. And I've been lucky enough to have that here at Kinley, that group around that are willing to do the work and not just come to the table and ask for all the examples, but to actually go and do the work and read the books and understand and get uncomfortable with and sit with what happens, because they've never had to experience that.
No.
They've never had to experience what we go through on a daily basis. They don't wake up and think about anything that we think about in terms of what our experiences will be for that day.
And it's interesting, you said earlier about having the conversation with your children. My son's just got a car and it's quite a nice car. And I had to sit him down and have a word about being prepared to being stopped. And he said, well, what if I haven't done it? I said, exactly. Don't reply in that tone.
Yeah.
You cannot reply in that tone. And, ultimately, if you know you haven't done anything, you just got to be, you've just got to be really aware that it's going to happen. And it's really hard.
It's really sad.
It's really hard to have to say that to your child, to say, I don't think you're going to get stopped because you're going to break the law or because of your bad driving or speeding or anything. I think you're going to get stopped because of how you look. And as a parent, that's such a burden. I find that such a burden. I find it, because you just want to protect your children. You want them to be accepted, and you don't want people to make judgments about them, but you've also got to prepare them for the world. And keep them grounded and keep them and that was, I found that really hard, a really hard conversation to have.
I think any time the examples of racism or having conversations with your kids around race comes up, I too find it quite difficult, and I get quite emotional. I remember when my daughter was at primary school, someone called her the N-word during Black History Month. The teacher did a presentation to the class, and somehow the word came up, and it ended up with this child in the same class calling her the N-word. And I went into the school and I was having a conversation with the teacher, and I was trying my best, my absolute best, not to get emotional, to have a conversation around facts, importance of what we're going to do, how are we going to have the conversation around race without someone in the class feeling that it's okay to use that word, and really understanding what that word means. This is centuries and centuries of absolute hate in that word that Black people have turned around to mean an endearment between themselves. So I'm not advocating that it's okay to say the word, but I think power to those who have changed it around so that it's seen as an endearment, but that does not give anyone outside of that space the right to use that word. And the head teacher that I was speaking to, we ended up talking about, the conversation veered towards why Black History Month was actually needed. And I was saying to her, well, let's have a look at the books in the libraries that the children have access to. Let's have a look at the reading lists that you send home and the inclusion of authors of different ethnicities within that list. And she was stumped. And I'm like, well, how can the kids feel valued, part of, if there's that exclusion even from them having access to authors from their own space? So I think like education and the whole school and the whole curriculum piece around what we teach our kids and how we teach our kids, and exposure to other authors and artists and other people of different spectrums and worlds is so important to their development. Because and I constantly remind, goes back to Britishness. Britain was built on immigration. You look at all the pillars of success. You know, you read that there's a reason why, like, Parliament only finished paying for slavery, that slave owners' slaves, back in 2015.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Slavery was over what, 1865? And only in 2015 has the government, like, I was here in 2015, I contributed to the payment of that, and that doesn't sit well with me at all. And I think, not meaning to bring politics into this at all, but I think there's a reckoning coming, and like, you see it across all of these socioeconomic policies, whether it be climate change, fossil fuel, slavery, acknowledgement of slavery, it existed. Return of artifacts to museums from their native places. I think if it's one thing the world has taught us, is that things go in a cycle, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so we've got to be brave enough to take the lessons from the past,
Yeah,
to improve the future. And I think unless we're all brave enough to come together, because one person can't do it, then we're not going to see change as we would like to see it.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.